Hey, welcome back, guys. First RV, we're back with part 3 of our Mission Command series. And today we're actually going to be talking about land or unified land operations, right? So there are some areas of unified land operations we are not going to cover in this video, but it's going to be covered as we progress through this series. So without further ado, let me go ahead and share my screen, and we're going to get started with part 3 of our series. So unified land operations, right? So this is a huge part of everything we do, right? So our main goal or objective is to, one, organize, train, and equip the force, right? So unified land operations is tangled up with everything that we do. So like I said, unified land operations, right? Army operations to prevent conflict are designed to deter undesirable actions by an adversary, right? So Army forces may have a significant role in the execution and flexibility of deterrent operations or flex response options. Additionally, the Army prevents activities maybe include, mobilization, force tailoring, other pre-deployment activities, initial deployment, and so forth, right? So we also include echelon commanding posts, develop intelligence, communications, sustainment, protection of infrastructure to support joint force commanders. So unified land operations, so while the Army may be conducting combat operations at various levels across a range of military operations, and you hadn't had a chance to watch the previous video when we discussed and hit on the nature of operations, make sure you do so. Army forces must be manned, equipped, and trained for large-scale ground combat, all right? So this is how we can tie maintenance operations and operational readiness, right? Our equipment has to be ready for a large-scale ground combat. During large-scale ground combat operations, Army forces focus on defeat and destruction of the enemy ground forces as part of the joint team. Army forces close with and destroy enemy forces, exploit success, and break an opponent's will to resist. All right. We attack, we defend, we conduct stability tasks, and consolidate gains to achieve the national objectives. Operations to consolidate gains include activities to make enduring temporary operational success, right? So we set conditions for a stable environment. We're deliberately planned to consolidate gains during all phases. So all phases of an operation, we are planning for gains, right? So we're trying to get one up. In some instances, Army forces will be in charge of integrating forces, synchronizing activities to consolidate gains. In other situations, the Army will just be there to support, okay? While Army forces consolidate gains throughout an operation, consolidating gains become the focus of the armed forces large-scale operations, have concluded. So FM 3-0 has detailed discussion, right? So that's a great resource, or ADP 3-0 talks about, shape operational environments, right? So there's four key things here. You got shape operational environments, prevent conflict, conduct large-scale combat, ground combat, and consolidate gains. So operational environment, right, like I talked about, is the circumstances, influence that affect the employment capabilities of the division of the commander. Armed forces assist in shaping an operational environment by providing trained and ready forces to geographic combatant commanders. Army operations to shape are continuous through geographic commander's area of responsibility, okay? This occurs before, during, and after a Pacific joint operation. If operations to shape are successful, they may prevent conflict and neglect the requirement to conduct large-scale combat operations. So unified land operations, right? So unified land operations is a simultaneous execution of offense, defense, stability, and defense support of civil authorities across multi-demands, okay, to shape the operational environment. Like I said, there's four key things, right? So shape operational environment, prevent conflict, prevail in large-scale ground combat and consolidate gains. All right. So if you ever had a chance to look at ADP 3.0, I highly recommend it. There's a lot of great stuff in it. Okay. So the goal of unified land operations is to achieve the Joint Forces Commander's end state. Okay. By applying the land power. Now we're going to hit on land power as we go through this whole series, but there are some things, like I said, in this unified land operations video, we're not going to cover. We're not going to cover unified actions, cooperation with civil authorities, multinational and joint operations, land power. We're not going to talk about close combat. We're going to somewhat hit on seize, retain, and exploit, and then of course readiness and training, right? But as we go through this series, we're going to tie all that in. During the conduct of unified land operations, Army forces support the joint forces through 4 strategic roles. So the 4 strategic roles that we're going to talk about are shape operational environments, prevent conflict, prevail during large-scale combat, and then consolidate gains. So let's talk about shape operational environments, right? So Army operations is to shape, bring together all activities to intend to promote stability and to set conditions for a favorable outcome in the event of a military confrontation, right? So, like I said, operations to shape help dissuade adversity activities to design to achieve regional goals short of military conflict. As part of the operation to shape, the Army provides trained and ready forces to geographic combatant commanders to support their command campaign plan. The theater, Army, and subordinate forces help the geographic combatant commander in building capacity and capability, promoting stability across an area of responsibility. Army operations also shape continuous through geographic abandonments, the area of responsibility, and occur, like we talked about before, during, and after joint operations. Shaping activities include security cooperation, forward presence to promote U.S. interests, developing allied and friendly military capabilities for self-defense, multinational operations, all this stuff here, okay? Regionally aligned and engaged forces are initially to accomplish objectives, strengthen the global network of multinational partners, and overall to prevent conflict. Army garrison forces are pre-positioned equipment areas that allow national leaders to respond quickly to contingencies. So when we talk about operational readiness training and planning for potential operations, armed forces represents home station activities that are part of the operational shape. Okay, so like I said, all the training we do, all the maintenance we do, our operational readiness rate of our equipment, our weapons qual, all this feeds into mission command and shaping operational environments. We have to be a ready force. Second one is prevent conflict, right? So Army operations to prevent conflict include activities to deter undesirable actions, okay? These operations are typically in response to indications and warnings that an adversities intend to take a military action or counter our interests, okay? They are intended to change an adversity's risk calculus by raising the cost for actions that threaten U.S. interests. Prevent activities are generally weighed towards actions to promote friendly forces, assets, partners, and to index U.S. to intend to execute phases of a planned operation. As part of a joint force, forces may be a significant role in execution of direct, flexible deterrence options. It also includes mobilization, force tailoring, and other pre-deployment activities. They may also include initial deployment in the theater of operations, which we discussed. And we've already hit on this, but future developing communication, sustainment, and protecting infrastructure, okay? Concept of operations. Regardless of the methods used to raise the potential cost for an adversity, the primary deterrent to conflict is the demonstrated ability of properly manned, equipped, and trained joint force to prevail in large-scale combat, right? So we all see the news. We all know what's going on with Russia and Ukraine. Like, I don't think Russia followed that. I don't think they were properly manned, equipped, or trained to endure what they've been enduring over the past, 9-10 months. So the third one is prevailing during large-scale combat, right? Forces close and destroy enemy forces in any terrain, right? Success, break the opponent's will to resist. Armed forces or army forces, we attack, we defend, we perform stability tasks, consolidate gains to accomplish national objectives. Division and corps are also formations central to conduct large-scale combat operations. The ability to prevail in ground combat is a favor in breaking the enemy's capability and will to continue the conflict. So when we're talking about gains, right, consolidated gains. So Army operations to consolidate gains are activities to make enduring any temporary operational success to set the conditions for a sustainable security environment. Okay, this allows the transition of control to other legitimate authorities. It's a continuous part of any armed conflict is necessary for achieving success across a range of all military operations. Army forces deliberately plan to consolidate gains to an operation as part of defeating the enemy in detail, okay? In other situations, the Army forces will be support, right? Army forces may consolidate gains for a sustained period of time over large areas. While Army forces consolidate gains through an operation, consolidating gains become the overall focus of our forces in large-scale combat operations. So I hope this video was helpful. I hope you learned a little bit about unified land operations. Like I said, we're not going to touch on multinational joint operations, land power, seize, retain, exploit, readiness, and training. We're going to save that for an additional video. And as we progress through this series, we're going to tie it all together. So please stay tuned for part 4. This should be coming out in the next couple days. As always, go Ordnance, and make sure you hit that like and subscribe button.